Hey, this is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and this one is a special episode because it's the portion of the Ryan Cooper who is at BBQ Tourist. It's a portion of his journey to Fort Worth, to the new barbecue places in Fort Worth. He went to over 9 places and gives us an in-depth story. It's the end portion of my interview that I just posted with him, but just in case you wanted to learn just about Fort Worth, this is a great primer for your trip to Fort Worth, and he gives advice and gives what to order and what he did order and the places that he was thoroughly blown away with. One place in particular, he said he had one of the best barbecue meals that he's ever had. So I just wanted to break that part out. Again, this is sponsored by the Smoke Sheet. The Smoke Sheet is available at bbqnewsletter.com. But I know you're going to enjoy this. Let me know below what your favorite barbecue joint in Fort Worth is. Thanks so much. Enjoy.
So after that, our Austin adventure, Central Texas adventure was over. Chris flew back to Kansas City, and I headed up to Fort Worth.
All right, let's hear the rundown, because Fort Worth is I think that's worth discussing in detail. So jump in. I won't interrupt you as much as
Okay, so Fort Worth was where it's at. I mean, Fort Worth, I ended up getting a bed and breakfast there that was kind of, centrally located. And the first place that I hit was the place that I hear the most about lately, and that's Panther City. Mm-hmm. Panther City literally was so good, and I'm not exaggerating, and maybe I shouldn't even admit this, but it was so good that I was like getting tears in my eyes.
Wow.
Like, it was just an emotional experience. It was just that fantastic.
What did you order?
So I ended up getting there early because I was, worried that there'd be this huge line, and there was a line, but there were only maybe 10 people ahead of me when I got there. I ended up ordering kind of the things on the menu that are more special, kind of Tex-Mex. Can't remember what it's called on the menu, but it's something like unique items or something like that. Okay. So ended up getting brisket tacos, the pork belly burnt ends, and their brisket elote. So I was getting that, thinking it was a side, but that brisket elote is a meal in itself. I mean, you could literally go there, probably just order that and be full afterwards.
And it's right next to it, isn't it? Right next to a bar?
Yes, in fact. So they were kind of outside serving out of a truck. There's a bar next door, and you actually go in and sit in the bar and eat there. That's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
And then it looks like next door to that bar is where they will build their permanent location.
So when you got the tray and the plate, and then you started getting into it, then you realized this is something special?
Yeah, it was a couple of bites. It was hilarious. Like, I would just take a bite of each thing. I think I started with the pork belly burnt in, just was, I knew that would be good. That's kind of what they're known for. And it was fantastic. And then got into the elote. That was unreal. And then the taco, and I'm just like sitting there, like taking a bite, like smiling, tearing up, texting people back home, telling them how amazing this is, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was I started off with a bang. I started off in Fort Worth with probably one of the best barbecue meals I've ever had. So
that's amazing. Yeah. This episode is sponsored by the Panther City Barbecue.
Right. Yeah.
No, but that's great to hear, and that's nice for. Okay, so that's Panther City. I've never had their food, and now I want their food, and I'm sure if you're listening or watching this, that will be your stop. So they open, what days of the week they open?
It's either Wednesday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday, I believe.
So did you eat all your food there because it was so good, or did you pack part of it up and head on to your next spot?
I packed it up, and I kind of did that just because I wanted to savor that meal a little bit and have some left over. So I packed that up, and I headed. After that, I went to Flores. So I'd been hearing about this place, Flores, that was in Whitney for a long time, and I never had the chance to go there. So then they were in Fort Worth. I was like, okay, I got to get there as soon as I can. So I ended up getting tacos there as well. Kind of like they do something similar where it's kind of barbecue and tacos. Also fantastic. Just a wonderful experience. Not at the same level as Panther City was, but I only ordered like a smaller, item of food. So I didn't try everything on the menu or anything like that. But it was very enjoyable. It looked like it was in a new area, up
Mm.
and coming area that they're building a lot of like bike trails
Yeah,
and
that's what I've heard.
things like that.
And
So
that's why he moved there. I think one of the reasons.
yeah, I mean, brilliant move because that place is going to be really booming. I think in a few years.
So if Fort Worth just had those two places, that'd be great, right?
Yep, that would be. I'd already be happy.
That'd be better than a lot of cities across the United
Yep.
States. So then, did
Yeah.
you go anywhere else that day?
No. I ended up kind of calling it good and heading home after that. I was pretty stuffed and
I'm
kind of
sure.
on a high,
Well, and also
from
for
that.
finding something like Panther City, people
Yeah.
might not realize how great it was, and you probably didn't realize it was at that level. So that's like it's kind of hard to you kind of don't want to just eat too much after that.
Right.
You want, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the next
Yeah.
Fort Worth place you went to?
Next Fort Worth place was this was interesting. So I ended up going to hang out with AJ from AJ's Custom Cookers, seeing him build some different pits and talk to him and learning all about kind of what he does.
Such a cool
And
guy.
then he decided to kind of take me on a tour of a couple of spots that he's familiar with. And the first one we went to was Smokeaholics,
Mm-hmm.
which he actually built the pit there.
Derek.
And Derek Walker is the pitmaster owner's name. And it was another fantastic meal. I would really highly recommend going there.
Okay.
Interesting place. It's very, very small. Line out the door, and we got there shortly after 11. So we were early, and it had a steady flow of customers.
Wow.
He is known as like the Rib King or the Slab
Yeah,
King,
or
something
rib
like
tips
that.
or something too.
Yeah, and that is, I can see why, because his ribs and rib tips were fantastic.
That's what I've heard.
I mean, the brisket and other meats, the turkey was extremely good, but the ribs and rib tips were phenomenal. So
get those at Smokeaholics for sure.
yeah, that was another great place. I mean, it was just
And that one probably
just
a lot of
fantastic.
people haven't heard of.
Yeah, that one was kind of new to me. In fact, I had heard of it and I'd heard of Derek, but it wasn't necessarily high on my list or anything, and it was just because I was unfamiliar with it. So it was good to connect with a local person like AJ that could tell me, hey, you got to check out this.
And that's a good tip too, is connect with a local person. Yeah.
Yep, if you can, even if you do it online, that's a great thing to do, is kind of ask somebody that knows.
Mm-hmm. Where do you guys went to one or two other places, right?
We went to one more. We went to Derek Allen's, which is kind of in the same area. It's actually not far from Panther City. I had tried to go there the day before, and they were sold out.
Oh, okay.
And that was super early. It was like 1,
Wow.
and they were completely sold out. So, yeah. So AJ was like, "Hey, let's go to Derek Allen's, and we'll get there early so that they aren't sold out." And it was good that we went there. They also had a steady stream of customers and everything.
Their food looks really good online too.
They're unique in that they serve everything. I believe all their beef is Wagyu beef. So
Wow.
it's extremely, extremely high quality brisket and beef ribs and things like that there.
Oh,
Very rich, though.
Yeah, as Wagyu beef gets, and it's also
Yep.
you've already had like a 7-day diet of rich food.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't eat a tremendous amount of food there.
Mm-hmm.
I just took a couple of bites.
Yeah.
Everything was great. But getting to know Derek, just to kind of talk to him and learning about, he actually built the 2 pits that he uses in his pit room and gave me a little tour.
Oh, that's cool.
They're unique in that they are actually upright. They're offset smokers, but they're standing up. And so it actually conserves a lot of space in the pit room.
Yeah.
I think he probably could have gotten a couple more in there as well, but it was really neat.
That is really neat. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And the other thing that he does that I thought was cool was he has a rub company called Dirty Dalmatian Rubs.
Oh.
And so that's actually, I had heard of that before I had heard of his restaurant. And so he has a little section of the restaurant where he sells the different kinds of rubs.
Oh, that's cool.
So he has one that's like a bark builder. I think that's what it's called, which is funny because it's a Dalmatian, so it's all about bark and barking. But
Barbecue
yeah,
people are always so clever and so punny.
right.
I love it.
So I can't wait to try that out. Next time I smoke a brisket, I'll end up
Nice.
using that.
So did yeah? I was gonna say because AJ didn't build the pits for Derek Allen, right?
He did not build Derek Allen's pits. Derek did those himself, but
Yeah.
he did. They had collaborated
Yeah,
on
he did something right with him, or
some projects, something to do with something about sausage. I think
okay,
some sort of thing to help him with sausage.
okay,
So,
cool. So that's four really cool spots in Fort
yep.
Worth. So where to next?
The next day was the pretty big day, and I knew it was going to be kind of like the marathon. We ended up. I kept saying, I really wanted to go to a couple of places, and then people would add local people that I talked to would say, "Well, you got to go to this other place," and I was thinking, okay, so I ended up adding, four spots to the list based on kind of local recommendations.
Okay.
And so I ended up kind of driving back and forth between Fort Worth and Arlington. But so the first one I went to was Hurtado,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually in Arlington. I had met Brandon Hurtado beforehand, but finally I got to go there and try his food. Phenomenal.
Ah.
It's interesting. It's another kind of Tex-Mex twist on barbecue. It was all extremely good. He had pork belly burnt ends that were great, and then what he does that's unusual is he smokes quail.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has a little quail that he serves as well. So I got to try some different things at his. I really liked. He had like verde salsa, which was nice and spicy. All of his food was really quite good as well. I mean, that would have been like my top spot had I not already gone to, all these other fantastic
Yeah.
spots. So Hurtado was wonderful. And
So
then from there, I ended up meeting up with a guy he's going to be opening a barbecue place in Fort Worth. His name is Daryl Byers, and he has a place that's called 7 Acres Barbecue.
okay.
So Daryl was my tour guide for the day and drove me to all these places, which was great. So he drove me to Zavala's after that, which
Oh
was
man.
awesome.
Oh man. Another one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it was another one that I actually hadn't planned on going to Zavala's, but it was like, you got to go to Zavala's. So I was just kind of forced to go, which was, I'm glad I was because it was fantastic as well. I ended up getting tacos there and some brisket.
Doesn't Zavala use beef brisket lard or like the drip?
Yeah, something like that. And the tortillas were fantastic. I mean, they were really puffy and kind of like just really good. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's in Fort Worth. I think it was some other city like closer to Arlington.
Okay.
So those two were kind of farther out.
Okay.
I want to say it's like Graham City or some other
Okay.
kind of place outside of Fort Worth. So got tacos, and literally we were just like in and out of there because we had other places to hit. But he had a substantial line, so we were there quite a long time, just kind of in line.
Yeah.
And it's another very, very small place, just like Smokeaholics is. So from Zavala's, we went to a new place that was actually having their opening or their first pop-up, and that was Lillian's Barbecue. And Lillian's is Jim Laro, who some people might know from the Texas Barbecue Facebook group. He's really active on there. He's one of the moderators.
Yeah.
And just a tremendous guy, just a wonderful guy. He and his wife Mandy are just really sweet people.
Stellar people, yeah.
And they're fantastic cooks. I mean, I was telling Jim, I said, this is really, really great food. Like, this food has a lot of great flavor. I especially liked his turkey, and then he has like a bacon wrapped jalapeno popper type.
I think he called it brisket Twinkies when I talked to him.
brisket Twinkies, or some people were calling them like brisket bombs or something like
Oh,
that too. So I don't know. It was good.
okay.
So that was fantastic. And then the best thing about for Jim that he was serving was the sausages he made. He's really good at
Hmm.
sausage, and his I don't know what he does with the casing, but it's just got nice snap and it's not chewy or anything like that. It was just
Oh, that's great.
perfect. He had like the jalapeno cheddar sausage that was really tasty. So
That's cool that you had a chance like
yeah,
to go see him because it was just because he's not popping up again, I
yeah,
think, until October. So
yeah, it was
yeah,
awesome to be there and support him on his first day. He had a steady crowd of people kind of coming as well, and but it was really neat to kind of see them, starting off.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I told them, I'm like, I have no complaints about this food whatsoever. It's all fantastic.
That's great to hear. And I talked to him and I talked to them yesterday actually to get their reaction to their first day. So that way people that are interested in going to actually doing what they're doing right now, they could see kind of what the reaction is and what the feelings and like the tips and tricks from going from catering to opening up doing your first pop up.
And I'm sure his experience was very different from mine because I went there and thought it was fantastic and flawless. And I know as a first time guy, every little hiccup and
Yep.
hurdle probably seems almost insurmountable, but he got through it and he did a great job.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got a chance. So what was the fourth location you guys went to that?
The fourth location was also a grand opening, and that was Dane's Craft Barbecue. They just recently announced that they were having their grand opening at a location. I think it's called Lola's Trailer Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bar. It's a fantastic space. Going to be perfect for them because they have a bar. They have a stage. They have lots of shaded areas with
That's cool.
big trees and outdoor seating and everything. So it'll offer them a lot of amenities that will be perfect for a new barbecue place.
That's great.
The lines at Dane's were insane. They were probably the craziest lines that we experienced anywhere, which is fantastic. I mean, everybody came out to support him, and I think we were in line for about an hour and a half. I mean,
Wow.
it was a long line, and it was hot out there, but it was worth it. It was fantastic.
Wow, like just with that, there's an amazing amount of barbecue in Fort Worth. Gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah, so we ended up there. We got a couple of kinds of sausages. I got one that was like blueberry
Yeah,
sausage.
like a certain kind of cheese or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, and then the other thing we got were the desserts. There were also fantastic. We ended up getting there was like a smoked bourbon pecan pie, and then a buttermilk pie. Both were. We managed to find room for that.
Yeah, I could too. That's awesome. That's really cool. And then Danes, did you get a chance to get brisket, or was it already sold out by the time you got
They were not sold out. They served little samples of like burnt ends, fatty brisket. So that's the only brisket that we tried, which
there? Okay.
was really great, nice and peppery. Great bark on that. But we didn't order any brisket. We were pretty full.
It was stop 4 of the day, yes.
Yeah, and then so we ended up going back to Hurtado because that's where my car was parked. And Brandon yells for us. He says, "I forgot to serve you guys tri-tip." So we're like, "Oh my gosh, tri-tip!" So we went over there, and I mean, we had just been to 4 barbecue places, and he sliced and tri-tip, and his tri-tip was so good that we were just still eating, even after that.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm glad we went back and got the tri-tip.
And that's unique to Texas, but tri-tip is it's prevalent here in California.
Right.
When it's done right, it's amazing, and you have to be able to cut it properly too. But
Yeah, he sliced it really thin, and it wasn't overdone. It was perfect.
Cool. That's awesome.
So then the next day was the last stop in Fort Worth, and that was kind of a big one, and that is Goldie's Barbecue. They were doing a pop-up. Again, it was at Zavala's because Zavala's is not open on Sunday, so Goldie's was able to utilize that space and do a pop-up there, which was awesome.
And Goldie's is Dylan from Law Barbecue as well as Truth, and all. He worked at a bunch of different places.
Yeah, it sounded like there were 4 different pit masters that were involved in this. All had great experience at various kind of Central Texas location. I think Micklethwait might have been one of them, and you could tell like that was up there with Panther City in terms of it was a great way to kind of end the trip. Goldie's was phenomenal.
And I think wasn't Brian from Tales from the Pits there?
Yep, it was kind of like another family reunion type thing, because it was like all these people from the barbecue community were there. Brian from Tales from the Pits was there. Dane, who had just had his first day, was there along with his pitmaster Thomas and his wife, or his fiance. Willow came up from Houston for this event, and there were other people just kind of there. A lot of barbecue fans who were there. JQ from JQ's Tex-Mex, Joseph
Queller,
came with it as well. Yep.
Yeah.
So it was like a family reunion.
It's almost like a bookend of your trip, like the Lerma stuff to this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up all ordering a bunch of food and all of us sitting down together and sharing it. So I think we pretty much ordered everything on the menu there.
Don't they? Did they bring their own baked goods? Because I know at Goldie's when they open, they're going to have they're to make their own bread and everything.
They made their own bread, and that was phenomenal. I mean, that in itself was like, oh my gosh, this is the best bread ever. And then to eat like the sausage and the brisket on the bread,
even
and
the turkey looked good.
Yep. Yeah. So I ended up making little turkey sandwiches with the bread, and it was really good.
Was that packed there?
It was also packed. It was pretty much the same as Zavala's had been the day before. It was like the longest line we had experienced, and I don't know what time it was, but there was a guy maybe around 12:30 or 1 that was given the last man standing sign, and so they sold out relatively quickly. But yeah, it was packed. It was a great experience.
Oh, so cool.
A lot of barbecue people there, celebrating and supporting one another, and so it was fantastic. A great way to kind of end my Fort Worth Arlington adventure.
Wow, that's great. So would you recommend? So people put Austin, they put Houston. Houston's huge and blowing up, and it's been blowing up. But then a lot of people go to Dallas, but Fort Worth is, and it's how far away from Dallas proper is Fort Worth? Because I've never been to Fort Worth, I don't think.
I mean, it was probably 30 miles, I think, or something like that, depending on where you're at in Dallas. I mean, that's a huge area.
Did you stay in Fort Worth?
Yeah, I ended up staying fairly central location in Fort Worth, actually not far from the new location of the Heim restaurant.
So this is a nice thing for people if they're interested in doing something that's more off the beaten path. Go to Fort Worth, stay there, but do the research, because a lot of these places are either pop-ups or funky hours or funky days of the week. So just kind of plot your path.
Yeah, and one suggestion for Fort Worth right now is the fact that a lot of these places, it's an up and coming barbecue destination. It's not where Austin is or even Houston right now. So a lot of these places are, they're only open on Friday, Saturday, a lot of them Saturday only. So, that's why I had to hit so many places all on Saturday, but they're not necessarily all open, all week long. So you really have to plan, and it's better to go later in the week when you can be there on a, Friday, Saturday.
True. Okay. That makes sense. That's great tips. And Ryan, thank you so much for this. This was so insightful. And as I've mentioned before, there's like a fear of missing out. Like when you follow along with BBQ tourists, like you're like, but it's so wonderful. Thank you for, you're doing God's work. You're helping us out. And I know that a lot of people will probably mimic the tour that you did.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, if you want to try something new in Texas, go to Fort Worth and try these new spots, because they're really doing interesting things.
Excellent. Well, cool. Well, have a great evening.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you too, Ryan. Thank you for everything.